Wolverhampton Wanders finished in 13th place last season, amassing a total of 41 points, and this is actually quite impressive considering the fact that the club were bottom of the league at Christmas. And you might expect Wolves to spend some money this summer and kick on next season. However, after news that broke out towards the back end of last season, that Financial Fair Play are going to be investigating Wolverhampton Wanderers for allegedly breaching the rules, they're going to be limited in how they can spend the money and who they can spend it on. And that's why I thought this might be an interesting video, because there are players who have already left the club, players who are also linked with leaving the club, and the gaps that they're going to leave need to be replaced. So we need to find suitable replacements who are also going to be within the Financial Fair Play rules. Now, it might appear that Wolves have a lot of players on the books, which they do, and in good areas and of good quality. However, once you look at the squad a bit more deeper, you realise that might not be the case. So, for example, if you take the players who've left on a free transfer, Moutinho has left, you've had Diego Costa who's left, and you've had Adama Traore who's left as well. And when you think of Moutinho and Adama Traore, they've been two stalwarts of this Wolves side since they've been in the Premier League, getting a lot of minutes, getting a lot of goals and a lot of assists, and key players for this Wolves side who are not going to be there anymore. You then got the likes of Nathan Collins, who's also left Wolverhampton Wanderers to join Brentford on the transfer of £23 million. So that's a £3 million profit from what they made. However, Jurgen Lopetegui didn't seem to fancy him towards the back end of the season anyway. You've got Connor Cody, who's left Wolverhampton Wanderers to join Leicester City for £7.5 million plus £1 million in add-ons, who wasn't really fancied anyway, was on loan at Everton last season. You've got Max Kilman, who might potentially be on the move as well. Napoli apparently made a £30 million Euro fee, which was rejected, and Wolverhampton Wanderers apparently won £35 million, which if they get that, I think they should absolutely sell Kilman for that. I think he's a good player, but he's not worth that much. You've then got some players who really may not be good enough for the team. You got Sarkic, who's on loan, didn't really set the world on light. Sanderson's been on a couple of loans now to Birmingham City most recently. I don't think he's quite good enough. Mascara's going to be on loan in the MLS next season. You've also got Bolla, who I don't think is good enough. Lembakisa, who needs a loan because he's not going to be cutting it in the first team. You've got Hodge, who I also think needs a loan. You've got Ruben Neves, who actually left the club to join Al Hilal for a £47 million fee. I think that's a fantastic piece of business. He's got 1 year left on this deal to get a club record fee. Great business. Unfortunately, of course, he is your best player, voted player of the season last year. Didn't want to stay. You get as much money for him as you can. You got Kawabe, who's on loan at Grasshoppers. Impressive 9 goals and 11 assists. However, considering his age, he's in the peak of his powers. I don't think he's been cutting it for Wolves. You got Chiquinho, who, unfortunately got a big injury last season. I think he needs a loan. Gonzalo Guedes, who wasn't setting the world alight at Sporting Lisbon. I think he's one where you can try and recoup as much money as possible. If not, try and send him out on loan again. Try and get a club to, buy him from you permanently. Real sad one, Raul Jimenez, who unfortunately has made his desires known. He wants to leave the club. And with 1 year left on his contract, he didn't score any goals last season. I think it was one where, pre-injury, Jimenez was arguably one of the best strikers Wolves have ever had. But since his injury, I think he's just been a shell of his former self. And I think it's time for him to go. And then this is what you're left with. So all of a sudden, from a squad which you thought had a lot of players, all of a sudden there's not that many anymore. So obviously you've got Jose Sa in goal. I think he's a brilliant shot stopper, but however, he doesn't seem to quite be as good enough with his feet as Jurgen Lopetegui would like. We saw Bentley coming in for the last few games of last season. I don't think it's an area in which Wolves can invest too much money in this season, especially with financial fair play restrictions. I think there's other areas of the squad which need more pressing matters. I think centre-back is definitely an area we need reinforcements. Keanu Hoover hasn't set the world alight since he's joined from Liverpool. It might be one where actually he needs to leave on loan as well. There's only 2 centre-backs arguably on the books. Totti Gomez was really good for Wolves in spells last season. Now a Portuguese international as well. However, I don't think you can rely on him every game next season. Craig Dawson, amazing signing from West Ham in January transfer window. I think he's definitely going to be there. But centre-back is definitely one area. You're definitely going to need some more midfielders as well, especially after losing Ruben Neves and Joao Moutinho. It's a shame that Wolves have lost both of them at the same season because you definitely like to lose maybe one in one window, one in the next summer to make sure you rebuild and the transition is a lot smoother. However, the way it's fallen, that's not going to be the case. You're going to have to make do with what it is. Big things are going to be expected from Matheus Nunes next season, coming in after a lackluster season last year. It's one where maybe wasn't necessarily his fault. He's kind of played left mid, right mid, but he definitely, now there's going to be playing centre midfield, no Moutinho, no Neves. He's got to really come into his own. Boubacar Traore had a good, decent spell on loan last season. Signings going to be made permanent, and I think he's one that is going to show he's got it a bit more next season. However, I don't think you can rely on him. And also, apart from that, Wolves need bodies in midfield, so definitely 2 more signings. Podence and Neto, I think, are going to be fine next season on the left-hand side. I know Neto played 4 games last season. Podence played a lot more. However, is he really good enough? Who knows? If you get a good enough fee, will you sell him? I think you should. However, the more pressing areas, like I said, need sorting out this summer. So I think it's one where you leave the left-hand side. I think you definitely need someone for the right-hand side. Pablo Sarabia can play there. He obviously came from PSG last year. Did alright in some games. However, with the Traore leaving, and I know Wolves are trying to sign him if he's willing to accept lower wage demands than he's demanding. However, Sarabia could potentially play in this cam role as well. You could maybe move Hwang there. But really, you need someone who's going to be there in the on the right-hand side a bit more frequently. So I think the right-hand side as well is going to need a bit more reinforcements. And of course, striker as well. Because while you're losing Raul Jimenez, Gonzalo Guedes, you also, Hwang could play the Klasic coming off as another ACL injury. Fabio Silva had a terrific loan at PSV last year in which he scored a back full of goals. Matheus Cunha can also play there. However, you really need to reinforce the strikers because after getting, I think it was sort of the 1 goal from all of your strikers from the new year, that simply isn't good enough. And if Wolves persisted with that kind of goal scoring, then they're definitely going to be relegated. So, centre-back, 2 midfielders, a right winger and a striker. And the first player we're going to talk about is a centre midfielder who I think should replace Joao Moutinho in this Wolves side. Because ever since he joined from Monaco in 2018, Moutinho has been a stalwart in this side. Last season, however, he made 31 appearances and only 20 of those were starts. If you compare that to his 2021-22 Premier League season, in which he made 35 appearances, 34 of those were starts. And Moutinho's never been one for getting loads of goals and assists. However, it's been his progressive passes and his shot-creating actions which have really allowed Wolves to play through him and trust him when he's on the ball. And I think I found that player, and he is Leandro Paredes of PSG, who the 29-year-old Argentine World Cup winner recently, is on loan as Juventus last season, in which he's made 25 appearances, 1 goal and no assists. He's got 1 year left on his contract, which expires in the summer of 2024. Paris Saint-Germain are apparently willing to sell him as they want to rebuild their midfield. And I think one where he's at a good age, his statistics show he's a good match to Moutinho, and I think Wolves can get him as well. If you just look at his shot creating actions, 3.8 compared to Moutinho's 3.34, that's an upgrade of 3.46. If you look at his progressive passes, that's 6.78. That's a whole 0.1 better than Joao Moutinho. And also great at interceptions, great at clearances. And I think he could actually be the perfect replacement for him. 29 years old, you might look at him and go, he's slightly on the older side. However, he's only recently turned 29 as well. If you think about Moutinho, went all the way to these 36 of Wolves. That could be a potential 7 years if you fancy it. Are you likely to get him? I think so. He's going to be on high wages, same as Moutinho was probably, I'm assuming. 1 year left on this deal. The fee is going to be quite cheap considering the situation. He's Spanish speaking as well. That's going to fit in with Lopetegui and some of the players at Wolves as well. I think one where he's got all the field qualities. He's a leader off the field as well. Part of the team that helped Argentina win the World Cup. I think this is one of the easier ones and a no-brainer. However, Wolves just need to go out and convince him for me. I think they can get him. And the second position is going to be another central midfielder, this time to replace Ruben Neves, the club captain. He left after joining Al Hilal for a £47 million fee, record club fee for Wolverhampton Wanders. And it's one where with 1 year left on this contract, I don't think you could deny him. He's been a fantastic servant for the club, joined in the Championship, brought it all the way to the Premier League, got into Europe one season as well. So I think it's one where you wish him well, but he was such an incredible football player, and it's going to be so hard to replace him, especially with the limited budget. Because if you think about it, his defensive numbers were amazing. His blocks, tackles, interceptions, tackling were so high for a player who actually had such great progressive passes and shot creating actions that it's going to be so hard to replace him, as he was basically all action, the perfect central midfielder. So the person I'm going to put forward is Andre Almeida from Valencia, the 23-year-old centre midfielder who can play as a centre defensive midfielder and an attacking midfielder, who is not quite a like-for-like replacement to Ruben Neves, because I don't think realistically you can get a like-to-like replacement for Neves because he was that good and that special for Wolves. But he did get 2 goals and 6 assists for Valencia last season in 37 appearances in all competitions. did only sign last year from Victoria Sport in the Portuguese league. So it is one where he is going to be difficult to prize away. However, Valencia are not in a fantastic financial situation themselves. If they got a good offer, I think they would be willing to sell. And it's one where you're going to have to rely not only on him and Paredes if you sign both of them, but you're also going to rely on Matheus Nunes to really step up this season. Like I said earlier, if Lopetegui doesn't play him on the left wing or the right wing and plays him in midfield where he's been really doing his best football before he joined Wolves, and he's going to be different. He's going to be carrying the ball, trying to break through the lines with his dribbles, and he's hopefully going to get more goals and assists than he did last season. And that combination of Paredes and Andre Almeida coming in to show up that midfield provides some depth and quality, and then Matheus Nunes also going forward and hopefully having a breakthrough season. I think that's a midfield that could potentially, and I say potentially because Moutinho and Neves were amazing for Wolves and it'd be hard to replace them both in one window, but you've got to try. And I think those two signings, Almeida and Paredes, they could definitely do a job. And then it may be one where you might have to look next season and say, okay, quite defensively or offensively, it didn't quite work out, we need some more legs, whatever it may be. But I think for the midfield, I think that's a midfield along with the likes of Gomez in there, Mario Lemina, who came in and was excellent after, he was in the Premier League for Wolves and Southampton and really didn't do much. Third position we're going to look to find a replacement for is on the right wing, where Adama Traore has now left the club on a free transfer. Obviously, there are rumours that Wolves want to re-sign him, but however, there's something block is going to be the fee and the signing bonus, because in my opinion, Adama Traore thinks he's Champions League quality, and he might be for a different club. But however, for last season, when he played 34 games, getting 2 goals and 1 assist, to me and the Wolves side, that's not Champions League quality if you're then trying to step up to the next level. I think it's one where Wolves should not be held over a barrel here, and I think they should definitely be hardball, try and get the wages that they think they should want. However, if you're not going to sign Adama Traore to a new contract, the perfect replacement in the ideal world is Nico Williams from Athletic Club. The 20-year-old turning 21 soon. Last season in La Liga, played 36 times for Athletic Club, scoring 6 goals and getting 4 assists. And obviously, I think he has a much higher potential. His output in the final third of the pitch is much higher than Adama Traore at a much younger age as well. He's only got 1 year left on his contract, very interesting. So there's going to be a lot of clubs who are vying for his signature this summer, or if not next summer on the free. But I don't think it's one that's actually realistic, unfortunately. He's the perfect profile player to really elevate Wolves to the next level. But because apparently Athletic Club want around 40 million euros, maybe even higher, I don't think it's one Wolves can actually go for. So despite what I said, I think my recommended transfer is actually going to be Jonathan Bamba, the left winger who's actually on a free transfer from Lille after his contract expired in the summer. He got 7 goals and 6 assists last season in Ligue 1. And he actually predominantly plays on the left-hand side. So it's contradicting what I said about you need a right winger. I still think you do. But because of the lack of options who are suitable to replace Adama Traore, so I think you might have to buy Jonathan Bamba, play him on the left, maybe move Pedro Neto, or you can move Podence to the right-hand side. You can maybe play Hwang on the right-hand side as well. But I think it's one where I think Jonathan, on a free transfer especially, he's someone who underperformed his XG last year, slightly overperformed his expected assists. But if you can get 10 goal contributions in the league next year for Wolves, then I think it's one on the free transfer, 27 years old. I think it's one Wolves could do worse, really. So I think Jonathan Bamba is going to be my recommendation. I know it's not the ideal replacement, but I think to get Nico Williams would be far too expensive. And I think if he's free next year, then I think absolutely go out and get him. But for this year, I think it's too much. And up front is going to be an important position for Wolves to improve on this season after being the lowest scoring team in the league last year. You've got Klasic coming back from his injury. Hopefully he's going to be good to go. Obviously before he got injured last year, the season before in the Bundesliga, he scored 6 goals and got 2 assists, which would be great for Wolves. You've got Fabio Silva coming back from his exceptional loan out in PSV. And then you've also got the likes of Hwang and Matheus Cunha after another year in the league. Hopefully will improve as well. But the transfer, I think Wolves need to get another striker, and that's Moussa Dembele from Lyon on a free transfer. He left the club after scoring a total of 3 goals and getting with no assists last year. And I know that might seem underwhelming, but the season before he got 21 goals and he got 4 assists. 25 goal contributions in the league is nothing to scoff at. And obviously his minutes have been massively reduced because of Alexander Lacazette scoring a total of 27 goals and 5 assists. Bayern one of the top goal scorers in the league. And it's been underwhelming for Moussa Dembele this year. I know it's one where a lot of top sides will look at him last year, and now it's like, not really sure we want him anymore. And that's understandable completely. However, one bad year doesn't mean you all of a sudden become a bad player. I think it's one where the stars align, and Wolves need a striker. Moussa Dembele needs a new club. It's a club that can maybe offer him better wages than he was at Lyon. It's one where he can go and play in the Premier League, do well, and maybe he can look then to go and find another club. Or it's one where it doesn't quite work out for Wolves, and then Moussa Dembele, you just sell him on for a bit of money because he's a free transfer at the end of it. I think it's one that could work. Obviously, it is a risk, but I don't think Wolves are in the position, unfortunately, to be able to go out and buy a proven 20-goal-a-season striker. And last but not least, at centre-back, obviously Nathan Collins has joined Brentford. It looks like Max Gilman is out the door. You're going to need someone quality, and you're going to need a first-teamer to go into that side. So I'm going to recommend Nikola Milinkovic of Fiorentina. And this is obviously the most unrealistic transfer, because Fiorentina are likely to ask for something around 25 million euros plus to sign him and get a signature. However, I think he's absolutely worth it if Wolverhampton Wanders can go out and get him. The 25-year-old has made 44 appearances for the Serbian national team. Last season for Fiorentina, in all competitions, he made 42 appearances, getting 3 goals and 2 assists. Obviously in the side that had a fantastic run in the Conference League, getting all the way to the final and losing out to West Ham. Next season, Fiorentina aren't going to have any European football after missing out, finishing 8th in Serie A last year. He's a 6'5" centre-back, right-footed, so he's going to clash a little bit with Dawson. But you've got Toti Gomez, who's already left-footed, so I don't think you need 2 left-footeds at the club, in my opinion. And I think it's one where, he's an aerial monster in his own half, winning 80% of his duels, and he's going to be a threat in the other half as well. It's standing at 6'5". His touches in the penalty area, his shot getting action is actually really high, and all from set pieces. So I think it's one where he's going to get goals and assists as well. And him alongside Craig Dawson, he's not rapid, but he is quick. He's got a good acceleration, good sprint speed. He's not Virgil van Dijk or whatever, but he's going to be a good complement to Craig Dawson, and having someone like Craig Dawson next to him as well as a leader in that side will hopefully motivate him and can marshal him in that defence, which really, was doing alright as goal scoring, which is the issue. So that's my 5th and final transfer. But let me know what you guys thought of those. So those are my 5 transfers for Wolves. Obviously, it's going to be a difficult summer ahead. I think there is an opportunity for the club to flip it and maybe look at it more as of a positive than a negative, and say the squad needs rebuilding anyway, so we may as well go out and do it all in one summer. I think it's one where, the squad is a bit unbalanced. It's actually meant for playing 3 at the back or 5 at the back because of the way Nuno used to play it. So you've also got the wing backs, so you've got Johnny and Semedo on one side, and on the inside you've got Ryan Nouri, you've got Ryan Giles come back from Middlesbrough, no goals, 11 assists, which was incredible, and Hugo Bueno. It's a pretty lopsided team, and Matis Cunha could maybe play better in the 2 up top. But I think it's one where, you've got a lot of these structures in place to develop it further. Bit of money coming in, from the likes of Neves and Collins and whoever else you end up selling. And I think it's one where Wolves could potentially be looking at the relegation zone this year. However, but if with the right recruitment completed, I think it's one where, the team could be mid-table again, or maybe challenging for Europe. You never really know. So I definitely say look on the positive side, Wolves fans. Let me know what you guys think.